Hi, welcome, welcome. How are you today? Welcome to my usual Saturday live, and I'm usually here with Lorlett Hudson, and we talk about leadership. Our leadership conversations on Saturdays are as a normal part of our week. But this week, Lorlett is not going to be able to make it. There's a lot of problems that people who've been affected by Hurricane Beryl in the Caribbean that's still affecting them one way or another. I think Lorlett will explain her own reasons, but she couldn't make it today. Issues and problems with internet, which is quite interesting because I've been talking about Bangladesh and what's happening there. And again, there was no internet access there. Obviously, there was a different reason for that. So, just a bit about me for anyone who is newly connected to me or has only recently started following me. So, I'm Monwara Ali. I'm a leadership coach consultant. I'm a CEO of a charity, and I actually do international development work, and I'm a director in other organizations as well as being a committee member and trustee on a couple of boards. So great to be here on a Saturday and to share this space with yourself. Not sure how many of you will be watching live, but I do this on Saturdays. My purpose being to share information, and Lola and I actually enjoy the banter and the learning that comes from our conversations. We're both in the leadership space and we are advocates and champions of leadership in women. A lot of our work is around advocating and encouraging women, helping build and develop their confidence so that they can be leaders within communities and they can build and grow communities. And so I talk a lot about community leadership, and I'm here today as well to talk about community leadership. So if you have any questions, I would, if you're watching, I'd love to know what they are. So feel free to put any questions or messages in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to follow my script. So I have a structure where I want to cover three things and I will try and stick to them. I may refer to my notes just to keep me on track. And I will share something about, I think I'll share a screen about my latest international development venture and where I'm at with that. For those who have been eagerly following, you may want to know, and also hopefully, in some ways, anything I say inspires you to believe that you can also be leading communities, you can be a great community leader. It takes a lot of courage, bravery, but it's possible, and the world does need more of us to be positively making change so that we can change the world for the better, especially for our younger generation. So I'm here and I am an absolute advocate for visibility for women because I think visibility is very important. The role modeling piece is almost a social responsibility for me because I believe young women, women who look like me, need to see role models like me being a bit more visible. So up until maybe 2020, 21, perhaps I wasn't as visible. The consequences of growing up as a woman and being conditioned to believe that women are not supposed to be leading from the front and that we are best leading from the back. I think that conditioning still affects me and many of us. However, we do our best to move forward and persevere and make change. And obviously, I'd be the first to say change needs to begin with us. So until we change our own mindset, until we change our ways of thinking, and really challenge the way we've been conditioned to believe or conform to a certain way, until we challenge those beliefs, nothing changes. So it has to start with our own thoughts, our in some ways unlearning some of our habits that we have developed over time. So I'm not going to be here for long today because my beautiful friend Lorlett isn't here, and it's you'd get bored, I'd get bored of listening to me. Anyway, so why am I here and how can I help? Today, I just want to talk about the power of connections and why we must connect with people. Now, you remember I've been running a number of these lives on Saturdays on my YouTube channel and my LinkedIn live. And primarily, as I was focusing on the power of connections and why connecting is so important. So I think most of you will agree that connecting with people is really important. I do understand the whole, some people finding it much more difficult than others to easily connect with others. But and to do with your introversy, extroversy, etc. And I get that. But here's the trick: if you are to lead within a community, you want to deliver a project, you want to run an event, you must connect with people, because there are so many people out there that probably have the same mindset as you, probably want to do similar things like you. And there is a real power in building your capacity by connecting with others. And of course, I'm naturally a very curious person. I like to get to know people. So, my own experience has been when you do connect with people and you delve deep and you learn more about each other, you never know where that relationship or that connection can take you. If I give you an example, I met somebody at a networking event in Bristol last year, and you would think, like, sometimes people make assumptions that connections will either instantly result in something or they won't. But that's not the case. The second part to connections is cultivating relationships. So the first part being connecting with people. I went to this event in Bristol. I met a few people, had conversations, got to understand and know the organization. And fast forward to 2024, that organization is now providing support for the charity I work for. So it just goes to show, like, where you could go to an event, you could network and connect, and until you start talking and get to know more, you don't know what you could offer each other or how you could collaborate. So that's why connecting is really important. And especially in our line of work, in community leadership or any type of leadership, historically and traditionally, the assumption is that you are in a very lonely space. You're on your own, and it doesn't have to be that way. When you connect with other people and you grow a camaraderie, it then doesn't feel so lonely on your own, and you become each other's support network. So I'm going to go on to my next bit, which is around cultivating relationships. So you become connected, and it's so easy to do that when you're networking, right? So connecting with people is the easy part. Remaining connected, however, is a much more harder thing to do. Now, I know that I am remaining connected with many of my connections and followers via LinkedIn and YouTube, because that's the way I am able to cultivate relationships. When you're doing it online via social media, it's very different if you're working within a particular community. So, for example, I work in Wolfham Forest. How I cultivate and nurture the relationships that I've built over the years in Wolfham Forest is attending events that are put on by people that I am connected to show support. And I find that often they come to my events too. It's a two-way thing, you can't expect people to give you unless and until you are also willing to give and be there for others. I think the key element here is people need to feel supported one way or another, and support doesn't necessarily just mean professional relationship, as like in a line management capacity, but also when you live in a community, other organizations, lots of leaders leading those organizations are in similar kind of situation as yourself, and the power of that nurturing and cultivation of that relationship is that you actually gain from each other, because you probably have similar experiences and similar problems you're facing. And when you can maintain that relationship, it means that you can sometimes lean on each other, and that then prevents you from feeling really lonely in your position and in your situation. Of course, we tend to anonymize our challenges, because when you work within a community, you've got to be careful as well, like how quickly information spreads. But you anonymize, but at least you have one or two other people that who are in a similar situation that you can lean on at times of difficulty, who really get it because they're in a similar situation. So I am talking about cultivating relationships, but I'm talking about, like, many of us cultivate those relationships where we feel like, okay, like-minded, and I feel like we get on, or we're similar. But also, I would suggest and guide you to cultivate those relationships sometimes where perhaps you're not as similar in many ways, because difference is also something that is quite beneficial, especially when it comes to doing like community-wide stuff, to community-wide events, and having or getting to know or have relationships with people who are very different to you could add value in a lot of situations. And you could lean on them because they're different. They'll have a different perspective than you. So there's a real power in that as well. So talking about how you cultivate and remain connected, I come to networking and events. So obviously, I started off mentioning a networking event where it led to a really good situation. There's been a couple of other networking examples I can give, like funding networking events that I attended, where I got to understand more about the funder and their priorities. For those who know me, I've been a bid writer for 30 plus years, and I've been worked in the charity sector more than that. So I do really value being in spaces where I can connect with other people. So networking where there are like funders is crucial, I think, for charities, especially small charities. So I've been in a situation where I've had conversation with funders. That has then followed on to the funder being interested in our charity, being invited to our charity, eventually leading to funding. So that's another example of where a networking can start and where it could eventually lead to. Curiosity plays a big role in this, because you have to remain curious. You have no idea where one connection can lead you. But it's so important that you do remain curious. Don't strike off or just make the assumption this is no good, or like, where is this ever going to lead me? It's such a waste. You don't know, because most results don't come or happen overnight. It takes time. It may take a year, it may take 2 years before you see the results of your networking or the connection that you've just made. So in November, on the 16th of November, for anybody who can travel to Waltham Forest, I have a new team of young women that will be organizing a speed networking event with dance and music as well. For those of you who are a bit partial to dance and music, it will be a women only event, and it will be with the primary focus of bringing people together. I think we don't do enough of that, and it's very important that we feel part of a community. I know that people often tell me that a sense of belonging is when you feel like you are part of something. So, creating that network, and having like a speed networking event, which is very structured and focused and targeted, is what we intend to do for the 16th of November. If you have any ideas what you would like to gain from that kind of event, it's something that I will post about on LinkedIn. Do come back and tell me, because it's still not too late. The organizing team are meeting next week, and I could take that back and say this is something that people have suggested. So, yeah, that is something to look forward to. If you haven't got the 16th of November in your calendar, put it on your calendar now. And it would be great to meet you in person. I do have connections that will be traveling from other parts of the world for that event. So it would be wonderful. We may have one or two special guests, but that will be revealed closer to the time. And lastly, but not least, I'm going to share my screen. Done. So I will be sharing with you something about Ma Learning Center. So the fundraiser that we had in Austria was about this particular project, and yes, there it is. Right. So talk you through the Ma Learning Institute, the project that I'm currently fundraising for international development work. The project is focused at building an institute in Bangladesh, which we'll call Ma. It will be a learning institute called Ma. Ma means mother in Bengali, and the sole purpose for this institute is to help women and girls to become self-sufficient. Our mission statement is to permanently transform the lives of women living in poverty. And the reason being that single mothers have difficulties in Bangladesh to raise children, and often they have a lot of obstacles. A lot of the mothers who live on their own don't really have much support, and the employment opportunities are very limited if you have very little education. And even when you have education, as you may have heard from the news and the state of Bangladesh, up until recently, there was a big protest about 56% of quotas for government jobs going to reserved groups of people, which meant even if you did study and graduated with from university, you there was very little opportunity to even apply for the government jobs, and they're meant to be the best jobs in Bangladesh. So it's an example of why, according to World Without Orphans, you've got 60 million children living in Bangladesh, and that's like 8 times the number of children in France. And we're talking about half of them being in poverty, and a third of the Bangladeshi girls are married before the age of 15. So, the solution for this problem, as we've identified, is skills development, confidence building, and employability opportunities. So, the idea and the purpose of Ma Learning Institute is to try and create jobs, to create opportunities by upskilling women so that they can become financially independent and have better chances of employment. We want to be able to, in the first year of this project, I'm going to stop sharing now. We want to be able to support 100 women, transform the lives of 100 women in the first year. The current position is raising £10,000 this year, and so far we've raised 2,000. So we're kind of one fifth of the way there. Hopefully, got a couple of other events planned later this year, and we're expecting a few donations too. So hopefully we'll get there, and by December we'll start working on the actual building. So watch this space. And if you want to get involved, there are several ways you can get involved with this institute. One of them is being a friend of the institute, which would mean supporting to fundraise, supporting to volunteer at the events, and just getting involved in organizing events and fundraisers. But also, we're looking to potentially have a visit to Bangladesh next year, where you could also get involved. But that's going to be a different program. It's something that I will share later in the year when it's a little bit more organized and clearer. But I will leave you here today, and I hope that you have a fantastic weekend, whatever you do, and keep going and keep inspiring. If you are a female who aspires to being a trailblazer, find your people, find your community, connect with people who are of the same similar mindset, the positive energy that can really rub off on each other. And yeah, that's your tribe. Those are your community. Those are your people. And the key is that a support community is one which uplifts each other and keeps each other uplifted. So I wish you all the best and have a great weekend. And I'll see you next Saturday. Bye bye.